Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 115. Following a tough day at the office for the England boys against Wales, we take a look back and see what really happened. Spoiler alert, the rose-tinted glasses are back. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a tough week, particularly if you've got any Welsh colleagues. But, we are here with our glasses on, our rose-tinted glasses, as always, to discuss the game in a lot more detail and hopefully bring you a little light relief. And I'm joined by Dan to help with that. Hi, mate.
Hi, mate. My glasses are still as rosy as ever.
Good.
Still gutted by the defeat, but I think I've probably got a slightly more pragmatic view on it than perhaps I did on Saturday evening.
I mean, I thought we were pretty restrained. I mean, we came away and we were quite humble, and we sort of said, you know what, better team won on the day, they deserved it, and we kind of left it at that. My view has changed, and we will discuss that. Well, I was just going to say, this is going to be the main thing that we want to talk about, that we suspect people want to hear about. So before we get into that, there's a few bits I think we probably want to do first, and then we can make this the sort of the bones of the meat of the episode. A couple of reviews, not surprisingly, a couple of comments. Start with the positive ones. Had an email from David Stockwell. He says, "Gents, to echo what one of your listeners said a couple of episodes ago, you're the only podcast I actually subscribe to and actively check for updates. It's a great listen, although my Scottish fiancée doesn't seem to think so after I subjected her to it on one of our Glasgow to Gloucester drives to see my family last weekend. But what does she know? She thought Wales might actually beat England. Oh yeah, about that. For me, the most disappointing aspect was the lack of any clear game plan and how we didn't change things when we hit that 50 to 60 minute period where it started to become pretty clear momentum was building for the Welsh. You've spoken in the last few episodes about how England have shown two different game plans in the first two matches, and maybe we have a third or fourth game plan up our sleeve. Well, either we don't or we decided not to deploy it in Cardiff. I don't think only having two game plans is necessarily a bad thing, but what is a bad thing is not recognising that the Paris game plan of kicking behind isn't working against someone with the quality of Liam Williams. Imagine how good he'd be if his legs were on straight. So it's time to switch to the Dublin game plan of big ball carriers, quick ball and Manu coming around the corner. Against France, we kicked while going forward and with attacking intent. Against Wales, we kicked while static and the chase didn't happen. When we did put the ball through hands, we looked dangerous, but we only got fleeting glimpses of it this time around. Before the game, the pundits were asked when looking at the England subs who on the bench had the ability to change things if needed. The best they could come up with was Ellis Genge. I mean, no disrespect to Genge, he's a great player, but a prop isn't going to fundamentally shift your game if that's what you need. A Cipriani might, but a Corbyn visit to the Wailing Wall seems more likely than Danny joining this squad under Eddie before the World Cup. If we don't have a player on the bench who can change the system like Wales did with Anscombe and Biggar, the latter of which had a huge impact once he got on, we need the players to be agile in their approach within the 80 minutes. As soon as a team shows they can defend and counter-attack our tactical kicking, or if the chase isn't working, we need to recognise this and put the ball in the hands of Billy, Manu, Sinkler, Mako, etc. These are big guys who we know will get us moving forward and cause the kind of disorganisation in the defensive line that led to Tom Curry's try. Looking forward to the next episode and hopefully hearing your thoughts on some of the above. Dave. P.S. The best man at my wedding next year is Welsh and currently intolerable. Presumably, I leave my fiancée, burn down the wedding venue, and lead the bachelor's life from now on to avoid having to see him again. ?
It's
I know it's a long one, but I thought it was so well written. I wanted to read it out in full.
Firstly, Dave, I'm with you. I don't see any other options.
There isn't another option.
There isn't another option. I would maybe suggest stick with the fiancé and leave the Welsh best man. But
at least until the end of the Six Nations, and depending on what happens in the final game.
Exactly. Wow, that was good, wasn't it? Firstly, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Dave. That was we appreciate the support of the pod, and wow, that was not only seemed incredibly knowledgeable, but politically topical as well, which is always nice.
Very good.
I don't think there's anything I disagree with there.
Well, there are a few questions. So he wanted to know, I think, I'm trying to flick back through it. I mean, so what do you? I mean, I agree about, obviously England needed to change their game plan. I mean, as I say, we're going to go into this, and I think a big part of what we'll talk about is, there's a lot of stuff in the media saying England are one-dimensional, but I don't see how you can say that, because as I said in the last episode, as he points out, remembering hearing us say in the previous episodes, England had two completely different tactics. Not completely different. They both had kicking at the heart of them, but very different against Ireland and France. And I don't think you need to have 30,000 different tactical options. I think a couple need to work, and you need to be able to evolve it on the pitch. That's the most important thing. You can't go out onto the field and go, right, we've got a game plan and we're going to stick to it for 80 minutes, because that's just never gonna work. It's certainly not in a World Cup where you've got to win 7 or 8 games on the bounce. So
the thing that got me, and I thought I was sneaking in with an idea that no one else I'd heard suggest so far. But what he said, going down to Gloucester to visit his parents, I assume he's from Gloucester. The Cipriani thing, that's what I wanted to bring up today. Is I wanted to rear that head again. Are we missing a trick not having Cipriani on the bench? When you're losing, when you just need something new, something completely different, how different is George Ford to an Owen Farrell compared to a Cipriani?
I mean,
and I think that's a great point.
It's what we kind of said going back to when we thought Cipriani was still in with a shout, and we were kind of choosing between the two. That was the reasoning behind it. I guess if you're going to play devil's advocate and say, it's all well and good saying in a situation like that you want a Cipriani that you can bring on. But you're not going into a game anticipating a situation like that, or at least you're hoping that you're not going to come across a situation like that. And so, is it too much of a gamble to say you want a guy who you're probably not going to use? Rather, do you know what I mean? Like, it's all well in hindsight. It's easy to say, yeah, Cipriani might have been able to change that, and absolutely he might have been. But you're always going to have situations where you can say, well, what if we'd had him, or what if we'd had him?
Of course.
I wonder whether, and I'm obviously assuming that England are gonna get back on track from the next game onwards, and big reason for that coming up. But I just wonder whether, under normal circumstances, a Cipriani, to completely change the dynamic of a game is actually not what you're looking for.
Well, to me, it's a risk-reward factor. Firstly, Owen Farrell tends to play 80 minutes anyway. Secondly, I think Cipriani's a good enough player to play a steadier game. I mean, firstly, did you see Gloucester demolish Saracens at the weekend? The score was actually a lot closer because Saracens got a couple of late tries. But I think George Ford, is a brilliant player. And this is nothing against George Ford at all. I just think that having a Cipriani on the bench enables you to adapt to those sort of situations which we saw against Wales, whereas having a George Ford...
Well, he's more like a Bigger, isn't he?
Yes,
what Wales did when they brought down Bigger on was bring someone on who could create something from nothing and turn a game.
Well, to me, yeah. To me, Bigger, like that kick, fine, but Bigger didn't necessarily come on and just change the dynamics of the game. I think the game was going that way. Bigger came on and sort of secured it and
just delivered it.
Almost enabled, whereas a Cipriani could come on and from nothing produce something. Whereas
True.
I'm not convinced a George Ford can do it in the same way.
Maybe not. I think one thing we should probably point out, though, is, of course, we didn't bring George Ford on. And so... And again, it's something we're going to discuss when we get into the meat of this game. But if you've got the guys there on the bench and things aren't working on the pitch, you've got to be thinking, well, how do we change it up with what we have available? And that's no disrespect to George Ford, but it's all well and good saying Cipriani could have done this and could have done that. Well, we didn't have Cipriani, we had George Ford, but we didn't use him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he may well have been able to do something that just wasn't happening at the time, for the team. So I feel like I don't know. It's a difficult one because England found themselves in a position they didn't want to be in, that they probably shouldn't have been in, And it then became a question of, do you make major changes when the game is still this close? Because it's not like Wales suddenly ran away with it. I mean, they did kind of at the very end, but when it started to turn, it was close. So part of you is thinking, is now the time to change things up, or have the guys that have managed to keep us just ahead for the last 60 minutes are the ones we want to keep there to keep us just ahead, rather than risking bringing on a whole new setup and having new tactics and potentially throwing the game away? Because had we made loads of changes and then that Welsh kind of onslaught had come at the end and we'd lost, we'd all be saying, why did you change it? It was working. Do you know what I mean? Like it's maybe it's one of those situations where it's lose-lose for the management team, and of course for the team itself.
Well, that's actually an interesting point, because that was something I wanted to bring up. What we've also got to bear in mind, the game wasn't out of our control till the 77th minute when they got a cross-field kick. So it's all very well. Yes, it was clear that we weren't playing that well, but there was still. So I wonder. Actually, let's go for reviews, because I've got a slight theory which I will bring to light later, but also cover some of Dave's stuff. But Dave, thanks so much for that review. I enjoyed that one.
Strong. Dave, get over to iTunes, drop us a review on there, because that'd be awesome. Clearly a fan, love that. Speaking of reviews, we have got a couple more. Another new one, another 5 stars. This is from Foster W. Sore heart but thankful, he starts it with. He says, for years I've watched England play rugby and looked to the people around me to share in my joy, bafflement and heartache. Often all I found was disappointment or disingenuous sympathy. Anti-rugby fans, whole other topic. But this Six Nations, I searched the world of podcasts and I found you, the holy rose-tinted glasses. I too saw Mako with his hand under the ball. I too thought Marrow was taken out in the air. Finally, I found others who see the game in the same way. So although England may have broken my heart after the early Valentine's Day gifts, I'm still thankful the Six Nations has led me to your pod. I'm looking forward to your take on the Wales loss. If you focus on how good Wales were, it will take a lot of the edge off, as it's a very real pain I'm feeling. Yes, we can still win the tournament, and let's be like Ireland and say we needed to lose to make us better. Love the pod, and you guys are doing a great job. Foster W.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm glad we have a kindred spirit.
Absolutely. Although I can't promise that we're going to focus on how good Wales were. I'm putting that out there now. We'll see. We'll see which way that goes. We have heard back from our old friend Wade Ackford. You remember Wade? He was the guy that told us that England were rubbish. That they were, Eddie Jones had to go, that they had no chance. Then England won a game, and then suddenly England were awesome, and he was loving life and loving the pod. To be fair to him, 5 stars have remained, which is awesome. However, he says, Welsh downfall 2. Gents, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. England were never going to rock up in Cardiff and roast Wales by 20 points. They just never were. I said so, Zippy, and I'm not a management accountant, I think he meant consultant, just a realist. They are good. They're a good-ish team that's made progress in the last 6 months. However, the hype generated by a fine performance over the Irish and a defeat of a French team that my club side, the OAs, would have given a game to, does not make them the All Blacks, I'm afraid. However, this loss may be a good thing to lower expectations and learn lessons before Japan. Areas for you both to consider. 1. Eddie Jones does not genuinely trust his key replacements. England were running out of ideas and gas in the second half. On that basis, you must change scrum half and fly half. These are the substitutions that change the pattern of the match, e.g. bigger influence. Jones clearly has doubts about Ford and Robson, but the change in tactical terms was essential. Neither Faz or Youngs were having good games, so roll the dice as there was nothing to lose. If Jones doesn't trust those on the bench, he must pick Kerr and Cipriani as subs. They will change the game. It may not work, it may not win the game, but it is a different problem for the opponent. Dice roll. 2. A related point is there's too much pressure on Faz to run the game. I've lost my way. It's so long. The captain to run the game, captain the side, and change the tactical plan if required. This is affecting his general play. He's the key influencer in the side, and he was not up to his high standards. A major concern. My team talk, if playing against England, would be get at Farrell and win the game. England need to address this quickly. He needs leadership around him. If the kick game isn't working, the leadership team need to change it quickly in game. Play with your heads up, England. Spread the burden of leadership and decision-making. 3, if you pick Manu, use him. Feed the beast. He only works as a decoy if he's actually used on occasion on a short ball. The one time he received the ball in some space, he broke 3 tackles. 4, Sinkler. He actually had a great game if you watch the tape. Keep the edge, but cut the theatrics. He only attracts the ref with the clowning around, and Jaco Piper was itching to penalise him. Love the player, keep the aggression, cut the Hollywood. 5, passion. It all looked a bit mechanical. You can't win a game on emotion alone, but Wales looked more up for it. I could go on, but you've only have an hour's pod, so I won't. This is not a disaster, but it really is a learning opportunity, a reality check. Wales really deserved the win. They brought passion and looked the fitter team in the last 20, a worry. Keen to hear your balanced views, chaps. Best WD. So some of his points I don't disagree with.
I agree with a lot of what he says.
Yeah, not all of it.
I think I agree with most. The thing I don't agree with is that England are... maybe I'm doing him a disservice here. I don't think England are something bad. I think a lot of what he says makes a lot of sense. I mean, the most important thing, if he's not a management accountant or management consultant, what we're thinking, HR?
That sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, possibly HR. But it's...
recruitment consultant.
Oh, hell no. Let's... What... I think, yeah, what am I trying to say? Sorry.
No one knows, Dan. No one knows what you're trying to say.
There's a few points I really agree with him there. And I think this is a major issue. Eddie Jones does not seem to trust Dan Robson. I agree with that. Yeah. If things aren't going well, do change your 9 and 10, because Ben Youngs and Owen Farrell, and as great players as they are, and I am not looking to slag them off because I think they're brilliant players, they did not have great games. They had ball kicking game. You need to trust in your subs. I completely agree. You need to trust in your finishers. So Dan Robson, that thing, and this is nothing against Dan Robson, why pick him if you're not planning on actually playing him? If you're not planning on
100% agree. And go back to the South Africa tour when he took Dan Robson and never used him. It is a bit strange. Like if you're not confident in the guy, then I 100% agree. You know, you've got a Danny Kerr who's done this many, many times before and knows exactly what's expected of him. It does concern me slightly that in a situation where, and I know I kind of talked it from the other point of view a moment ago, but you know, I don't agree with what Wade is saying regards you've got nothing to lose, because absolutely we had something to lose. As you just pointed out, the game didn't really get out of control, you know, out of our hands until the 78th minute or 77th minute. So we had a lot to lose by making big changes. And I genuinely think if we'd made the changes and it hadn't had an impact on the game, we'd all be sitting here now saying, why the hell did he make all these changes when the guys that were on the pitch were in touching distance? Because that just seems to be the way that fans react these days. But I think the changes needed to come sooner. But yeah, it needs to be a tactical decision, not let's just take a chance. What have you got to lose? The point is with the strength and depth that England have, you know, we should have a 23 that's practically interchangeable. And so it shouldn't matter. If one's not working, you just say, okay, well, tactically we're going to change. And it's not going to change anything about the team because they're all so well drilled and they're so used to playing together that one can slot in and replace the other and we don't have to worry. Obviously, you're going to have star players and it's important to have that. And Owen Farrell is one of those. But even star players are still, believe it or not, human. And I think Owen Farrell had one of his very, very rare poor games. And in my opinion, it was a really poor game. And I think that a lot of the fault of the result of that game comes down to him.
So I don't slightly disagree, but just to play devil's advocate, I've also got a slight theory on this. So I think that a lot of the time the coaches might have said, this is our game plan. If we stick to it from analysis, we will win. And perhaps Owen Farrell's playing that card. I'm not saying he's right to have done it, but perhaps he's playing that card thinking if they have doubts, they'll make changes. And because they didn't, he potentially just stuck to that game plan.
But that's pretty naive. I mean, one of the things Wade talks about is that Owen Farrell needs leaders around him to make the decision to change tactics. Well, Owen Farrell's the captain of that. Owen Farrell's the captain of that team. He is the most senior in the leadership hierarchy in that team. So he should be the first one saying we need to change things. The fact that he's the one kind of effectively controlling those changes as the puppet master in the middle. I mean, look, to back this up, I did a little bit of stat analysis. I had a quick look at some of the stats of the game, and from an attacking perspective, all right, we take our midfields. Tuilagi and Slade in the first two games, they showed what they're made of, and we were all singing their praises. Right, they made 97 meters between them. They did it with 12 runs, right, 12 breaks. So that's an average of what, 8 meters a break, something just over 8 meters a break. Hadley Parkes and Jonathan Davies, the equivalent on the Welsh side, exactly the same amount of distance, 97 meters, but it took them 17 runs to do it. So, England made a lot of ground. I mean, actually, I thought Tuilagi, because of that one break, it kind of sticks out, was the one that really, was underutilised, which he was. He only had 5 breaks in the entire match. Made 34 metres, an average of nearly 7 metres a break. Henry Slade, only 7 breaks, 63 metres, an average of 9 metres per break. Those stats tell me that these guys need ball in hand.
Yeah.
And I think the key thing, when looking at the previous performances, the key thing about the kicking game, well, 2 things actually. One, it works because you almost alternate. You almost want to alternate between kick, put it in hands, kick, put it in hands, because that way the defence is constantly guessing. If all you do is kick from the very beginning of the game to the very end of the game, they don't need a blitz defence. They can just sit back and wait for you to kick it because they know exactly what you're going to do. Now, coming on to the kicking game itself, if we look at the success of the kicking game in the previous 2 games, it was always little kicks along the ground through gaps for Johnny May or Noel or someone to run onto, right? Give him a direct foot race. For some reason on Saturday, everything went up in the air. And it's always going to be more difficult to turn it into a foot race, especially against someone of the quality of Liam Williams, when it's about the challenge in the air, and given all of the sort of issues that surround that and the risks of taking someone out in the air and cards and penalties and everything else, I don't really understand why the kicks weren't going along the ground into space and giving Johnny May that opportunity to try and just basically outpace his opponent, like he did when he kicked it himself at the end of the first half. That part of the kicking game confused me, because it was totally different to what we'd seen prior.
Yeah, I think part of it, we were almost a downfall of our own previous success with the kicking game, because it had worked so much.
But that's my point. It wasn't the same. Yeah. It wasn't the same tactic. It was a kicking game, but it was much more of a sort of, look, just kick the ball away, stick it down their throats, and let them have another attack. I know that the game plan is about it's not a possession tactic. You're going to have a low possession percentage when you play that kind of game, but I didn't feel like it was utilised as an attacking threat. It seemed to be purely a defensive one.
But as Dave said in the first review, and by the way, sorry if it's David, but I'll stick with Dave for now. But
it is Dave.
Oh, good. Against Ireland, the kicks, we were on the front foot because we had the likes of Tuilagi coming around the corner, taking the crash ball. Against Wales, I felt we were less on the front foot when we were doing the kicks. And I think that's the key aspect. When you're on the front foot, those kicks are a lot easier. And I agree with you, mate. They were all just aerial bombs, which the Welsh dealt with very well.
Yeah.
And they dealt in pods as well, which meant that it was a lot harder for us to attack those kicks.
Yeah, no, they did. They handled it well. And actually, England have shown in 2 matches that there's a tactic that works. And why wouldn't any team go, okay, well, it worked. Let's look at why aren't we doing that? And very quickly they're going to. And Eddie Jones said this. Teams will very quickly see what we're doing, and they'll come up. They'll find ways to deal with it, which they did. But he also said in all the build up, it's about working out where the gaps are. And so when they're defending the kicking game, they're creating space elsewhere. And that's all well and good, but you've got to attack that space. And we didn't attack that space once, really. I mean, we did. We had that one good break from Manu Tuilagi, which was awesome. We broke 3 tackles, and we all thought, okay, here we go. We're turning it on now. And then that was the only one he got. Obviously, a couple of breaks from others, a few little moments of individual kind of magic to just get us all a bit firing again. But there didn't seem to be any plan outside of the thump the ball in the air, up the field. And you could argue that, had the kicks been a little better, then we, make them more competitive. But even then, I mean, there were a number of times actually where Johnny May was the first man to the ball, and he flicked it back, but he'd got ahead of the Welsh defence. So when he flicked it back, he flicked it into their hands, and it was open play, so they weren't offside, and so he just gave them back possession. That's not a complaint at Johnny May, but it's like if the ball's in the air, it's much harder for him to actually take the ball when he's chasing it at that kind of pace. Put it on the ground, he can dive on it, or he can chip it through and keep going because the guy's so quick. I don't know why the ball was constantly in the air. And again, unfortunately, only Owen Farrell can make the decision to do that, to put those kicks in. And Owen Farrell was the one that made the decisions regularly not to let Tuilagi take the ball in hand, not to give the ball to Slade in hand, and utilise the guys and what they can do in attack, because we know that they're great with ball in hand. We've seen it. It boggles the mind a little bit. And I kind of felt as well, watching the interviews and things afterwards, I kind of felt like Owen Farrell didn't know why Owen Farrell hadn't done it. He almost felt surprised himself at why he'd had such a bad game. Interesting. The Mail on Sunday, right? The Mail on Sunday, as they always do when they reviewed the game, and pretty much every Welsh fan has since commented on Twitter about how the guy who writes the article clearly knows nothing about rugby. I would argue he probably knows a little bit if he's got a job writing about rugby, but what do I know? Anyway, he scored all the players, as they do. And interestingly, in most cases, the English player scored better than his Welsh counterpart. Owen Farrell didn't. He scored a 6 out of 10. I thought he had a really poor game. But I guess if you look at it, Tuilagi, you can only do deal with what's in front of you, right?
Exactly. He didn't do anything wrong. It's not his.
I think that's the key thing, that there weren't most of the England team didn't do anything wrong. The ones who ordinarily shine and do things right and and create opportunities and score points weren't given the opportunity to do what it is they normally do. And unfortunately, that comes from. I mean, you can say that that's a tactic, but I go back to that point about if we're going into games saying we've got a tactic and we're going to play it for 80 minutes no matter what, that seems like a massive backward step. I thought what's key about this team is that they've evolved together and they have that ability to identify. You can go in with a game plan for sure, but you need to be able to change it on the fly, and that's what was missing in Wales.
I completely agree with that. And I'm not saying that was the tactic. That was just perhaps a theory of mine. Because one thing we do need to remember is it did kind of sneak up on us, but it's not as if at 60 minutes we were like, oh my God, we're in trouble, we're losing. Because I think at 60 minutes we're winning.
We are winning on the scoreboard, but I think this is the other thing that frustrates me is that I genuinely think that first 60 minutes, given a couple of slightly different decisions to mix it up, to utilise those guys, I think we could have put the game to bed in the first half.
Agreed.
But we didn't. We kicked away our opportunities. When Johnny May had that little break just before the end of the first half, and we won the line out, sort of 7 or 8 metres out, and Farrell kicked cross field and kicked into touch.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't think that was the right call. I think there was. Did we have a chance? I may be wrong here, but I think there was a chance where we could have taken the points there.
No, we didn't. There were none of those. He's been pretty good at taking points when they're on offer.
Because I agree. I think that kick was ambitious. I guess they're going for if we score this, but equally you've got to look.
Generally, though, I feel like those kicks are for penalty advantage.
Yes, yeah, and unless they're free and open, that's a penalty advantage kick. It's kick to nothing. If it pays off, great.
Yeah.
If not, you've got the penalty.
But it wasn't at that point. It was an open play kick, and it didn't. Look, fair enough. You can't get them right every time. He didn't get it right on that occasion, and didn't pull the kick off. But it's just another example of where opportunity potentially presented themselves following some awesome rugby from Johnny May, another player who had a great game, albeit he wasn't given very much to do. And I think that's half the problem. People will almost say, "Oh, Johnny May didn't have a great game because he didn't score 3 tries off Owen Farrell kicks." Well, Owen Farrell didn't give him the kicks that he could score tries off. He scored 3 tries where he dived on the ball over the line because his pace was outrageous, and Farrell weighted a kick perfectly along the ground, gave Johnny May a foot race. That didn't happen in this game. You look at the forwards. I mean, this guy gave, and I wouldn't disagree with him, he gave Tom Curry a 9 out of 10. That was the highest scoring player on the field. And he was awesome. Kyle Sinkler, and we're going to do a whole bit on this because that's starting to wind me up. He had 16 tackles before he was taken off. It was mammoth.
He had 20 before he was taken off.
Sorry, 16 in the first half.
Yeah. So firstly, I'll hold off on the Kyle Sinkler bit. Tom Curry, to me, and I don't think I'm overstating this, that's one of the best England 7 performances I have seen in years. Possibly I thought he was absolutely immense.
Yeah, he was. He was immense. And there was a moment in those early stages where you thought this game's going one way. The intensity was there. And I felt like the forwards created quick ball. They were aggressive in defence. They were aggressive in attack. They made ground. I mean, Billy Vunipola made something like 54 metres from his breaks, which is huge. What was the equivalent? I mean, yeah, Vunipola and Curry between them, 75 metres versus Tipuric and Moriarty, 46 metres. So they had an immense game creating front foot ball. And, we know front foot ball is recipe for do some awesome shit in the backs. And every time the backs got the ball, it was kicked away. So yeah. I feel like a lot of hard work and some really strong performances from the the front 8, all of them, was wasted. And so again, you look at the team and you say, "Oh, the result was poor, therefore the team must have been playing badly." Unfortunately, it keeps coming back to one man and the decisions that he's making. So I hate to say it, but I genuinely think that Owen Farrell was a massive factor in England losing that game. And I don't believe it's something we'll see from him again in a very long time. But I just think he had a horrible, horrible day, and nothing came. Nothing was working, and he was just, he just wasn't seeing the game the way that he normally does. And I think that is the point where Eddie Jones needs to say, "I don't know what's going on, but something isn't right with him. He's not, maybe his pet hamster just died or something. Who knows? Something's not right. It's not coming together."
Or Nibbles.
Bring on George Ford. And yeah, maybe George Ford isn't as good as Owen Farrell at 10, but he probably would have been last Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll be clear because you and I have spoken about this. We're not slagging off Owen Farrell as a player because we know he's a world-class player and we want him in the team every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it wasn't one of his better days. As I think you described him, even demigods are fallible. But what he needs to do is now change into an actual god like Johnny and make sure that never happens again.
Absolutely. I mean, from what I hear, it's once every 10 years. So at least he's got his out the way. Would have been better if he'd done it with in a friendly or something, but c'est la vie. But yeah, look, bottom line is, if we look at the Welsh individual performances, I don't think there was anything spectacular.
I thought Liam Williams
was great at fullback, but
actually I thought Navidi was brilliant as well.
I mean, statistically, there was nothing special about what he did. I mean,
I thought he slowed down ball a lot.
Yeah, true. I mean, I suppose the statistics don't cover that. But again, I don't feel like England had slow ball. I feel like a lot of the time they had quick ball, and they quickly kicked it away.
It was sometimes it was painful. There were times we said about the penalty count, like only what was it, 9-3? I mean, three is absolutely amazing from Wales. Well done.
Yeah,
9 is not bad.
9's great. Look, we've always said single figures.
Penalties. Yeah, I still think there were 3 or 4 penalties that were pointless. I think some were unfair.
Yeah. Well, this is probably the perfect. Yeah, perfect point to talk about Kyle Sinkler.
Do we want to do reviews or should we do Kyle first? Let's do Kyle first.
Reviews are done.
Sorry, was it like?
Yeah. I felt like 20 minutes ago when we started talking about the game, we moved off reviews. But yeah, and if you've got any new reviews that I haven't come across yet, then by all means.
Well, there were some Facebook messages that I don't have to hand, so we'll
organised as ever, aren't we?
Thanks very much.
So yeah, I mean, Kyle Sinkler, given that we're talking about penalties, and he's obviously a bit of a talking point at the moment, I want to start by saying, please, if you're an England fan, and I'm assuming you are if you're listening to this podcast, can we get off the guy's back? Like, it's one thing to see Welsh players choosing to hate him. The guy's awesome. Okay, and all of the build-up to the game where he was being kind of highlighted as a potential problem area for England because of his erratic behaviour and he's a bit of a wild card and all this stuff, a lot of that was Warren Gatland pointing the finger. Let's not forget, Warren Gatland selected him as a Lion in his starting 23, 3 test matches out of 3 to beat New Zealand. So Warren Gatland, it was 100% mind games from him because he clearly rates the guy.
Fair play to Warren Gatland. Fair play.
Yeah. Absolutely. But let's not jump on that bandwagon as England fans. Let's say, hang on, no, he's awesome. Look at that tackle count. Look at the effort that he puts in. The fact that he stands up to Alan Wynne-Jones. Alan Wynne-Jones has been around a long time. He's no Martin Johnson. And when he, laughs in the face of an England player and kind of palms him off as being a junior or whatever it was that he tried to do, I want to see that England player get up in his face and say, no thanks. It's almost like people think, Alan Wynne-Jones, he's a rugby legend. No one should get in his face. Therefore, Kyle Sinkler is clearly an aggressive, little boy who doesn't know what he's doing. No, he's saying, I don't care who you are. And I like that.
I 100% agree with that. And for the record, I thought Kyle Sinkler was absolutely brilliant.
He was.
And it was a hell of a performance. There are times where, and none of the instances you're chatting about, where theatrics perhaps where he's like slacking the back on the ruck, which is a bit, it's unnecessary. I want to see him get in the face, but maybe not so visibly. Maybe just, learn the dark arts a bit more and do it a bit more slyly. But
I think he's capable. He does it anyway, right? Massive hits, being aggressive with ball, as a ball carrier. So he is. To be fair, he's doing a lot of it already. You're right. Let's lose the unnecessary, slapping. I mean, when you say slapping the back of the ruck,
no. So I mean, if a Welsh player's there, it's just a bit visible. It's just a bit in the ref's face.
You do need to be aware that you have clearly been targeted by the media, and therefore, unfortunately, there are certain referees that will they'll buy into it. Yeah, there are certain referees that won't, but there are certain ones that will buy into it, and unfortunately, that does shine a bit more of a light on you. But that doesn't mean you stop doing what you're good at and you stop doing what you're doing. And I think if we can get a performance out of him, and it's 60 minutes, 50, 60 minutes, and then we start to think he might start to create problems, and then we take him off, so be it.
Because the performance he's put in, it's been absolutely outstanding. It's worth it. Yeah. Anyone who's having a go at Kyle Sinkler didn't watch the game because he was brilliant in that game. He's a brilliant player, and I would have him in the team every time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, England fans, we need to get behind him. I think I want
to talk about the penalties. Let's not forget that he won us a penalty in front of the sticks for the opening points. Then the 3 penalties that he did give away, and I can't remember all of them. One of them was 2 of them kicking. No, one of them was I think. I don't remember what they all were for. The only one that sticks in my mind because it just annoyed me was the high tackle. It was called in the middle of a maul. He's obviously trying to keep the Welsh player with the ball, who happens to be Alan Winch-Jones, in the air.
Nice,
you like that, yeah? He's trying to obviously keep him in the air, stop him from going to ground, so that it's, it can become a ruck and they can get over the top and win the ball back. So he's holding him, say, round the chest. Winch-Jones is trying to get on the floor, so he's wriggling around trying to work his way down. So inevitably, at some point, he's going to work his way down to the point where the person holding him has his arms around the neck area. He then immediately turns to the referee and he's slapping Sinkler's hand, saying, "Ref, look what he's doing! Look what he's doing!" Now, maybe that is a penalty. Maybe that is just the rules of the game. It's not cynical play by Sinkler. It's not. That to me is not an example of erratic behaviour that causes problems. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. But you're in the middle of a maul in an aggressive physical game. It's just, I don't know. To me, that's not something that we need to be concerned about. That's not something that he is doing because he's a certain type of player that's going to regularly create penalty opportunities for the opposition.
So I watched that just before we came back. To me, it's not a penalty at all. So I agree. He's holding the player up. The player's trying to get to ground. And I watched it again. Firstly, it's almost like a seatbelt. But he's not holding around his neck. What he's actually doing is got his arm, his seatbelt, and he's holding his shirt. Yeah. He's not in any way choking him.
I mean, and maybe that's credit. Maybe that's credit to Wyn-Jones for having that kind of influence on a referee.
Well, I think another thing is a referee sees anything near the neck these days.
Whistle goes.
He's going to blow up. So perhaps there's a level of naivety. However, what's he meant to do? What's he meant to do? Let him turn it into a ruck so they get the ball, or is he meant to fight to keep it into a maul? So, to me, it's not a penalty. I understand why it was given, but in no way do I think he did anything wrong there.
No, and I think most importantly is the question of people saying that he's a liability. That's not an example. That's not like slapping someone on the head and getting a penalty, or back chatting the ref and getting a penalty. It's not that kind of thing. So yeah, I think we need to just chill anyone who's still on his back about the way he plays rugby, and let's focus on the positives, which are huge. Because he's awesome, and when we get Mako back. And with the way Jamie George is playing at the moment, we've got a really strong front row.
Yeah, we're brilliant up front. I had no issue. There's no part of me that want to change anything about Sinkler. There's just
we love any part. We salute you, sir. Keep doing what you're doing.
We certainly do. We certainly do.
Keep doing what you're doing. Do we know, because we've now lost Courtney Laws. Now, yeah. Two of the awesome foursome obviously remain. Do we know when Itoje is back? If he's back from Six Nations?
I believe he's potentially back for the next. I don't know this actually, but is he potentially back for Italy?
I mean, if he is, awesome, because obviously, if we can always have 3 of the awesome foursome available, that's ideal. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's less of a concern, but I am seeing right now Itoje in line for Italy return. So that obviously is one good.
I think I would personally probably rest him for that game or put him on the bench.
Well, I think you have him on the bench. Well, I suppose otherwise you got Charlie Ewells.
He's a great player.
I'm not sure I would rest him though, because I feel like you want to get him, back into the game again. If he's fit, if he's passed all the tests, you want to get him the match fitness, and that he's got the experience to not have to work up to it, having only had a couple of weeks off. So yeah, possibly you start him on the bench, It wouldn't be the worst
assuming he's
impact player to
100%.
bring on. Yeah, and of course, but they're not gonna even consider it unless he. These days, I think players, it's not like it used to be where he's 70%, so we're playing him, but he's not going to be his best. These days, you're 100% or you're not included, and there's a very specific kind of benchmark, isn't there? They run specific tests, and either you pass or you fail.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's part of me, definitely don't start him. I'd say have him on the bench, maybe get a bit of game time just to get that match sharpness. But if not, that's not a major area of concern. Losing Courtney Laws is a big loss because he's a great player.
And he's been playing unbelievably.
Yeah, he really has. And it'd be great to see Launchbury slot, though. I love Launchbury.
So maybe Cruz gets a rest. Oh, no.
Well,
Charlie Ewels has been called up, so it's whether or not they use him or just send him back home again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be annoyed if they use Charlie Ewels because, like you say, with Marrow, I don't think it matters if he doesn't play again against Italy and isn't involved. I don't think that means he can't come in against Scotland and still give a great performance.
Yeah, I wonder what changes will be made. Well, obviously that will be the focus of our next episode, which will be, I think, probably Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and build up to the game once we kind of put this one behind us. But it'll be interesting to see. We'll keep an eye on the media and what's going on, and hopefully we'll have a better idea. But there's a few players I think could get a shot without changing too much, because I think it's important following the Wales game that the bulk of the group is the same, and they get that opportunity to just get things back on track, even though it's against Italy. I think if we did what Gatland did against Italy and made huge changes just because we're assuming that Italy won't put up a fight, we might come to regret it. I don't think that. I don't believe that, but I don't think it's valuable for the same reasons that I didn't think that Gatland should have made so many changes, because I think it's important to see what the players that you're bringing in can do when the majority of people around them are the regulars. Yeah.
I'd like to see Robson start.
Yeah, I think you could do swaps. So definitely you could have Robson start. You could have. I mean, potentially you could start George Ford. Not sure that I would. I think Owen Farrell needs the opportunity to get out there and go, it was a bad day. This is what it was meant to look like. Cokanasiga could start. You could potentially give Johnny May a rest. I don't think we need to Johnny May, I don't think has anything to prove. So I think resting Johnny May would be fine.
Yeah.
And it's not like we don't have quality on the wing. If you had Cokanasiga and Knoll starting on the wings, you'd be all right with that.
You wouldn't be complaining, would you? Yeah. Who else? Yeah, I mean, we'll go through that.
We'll do that. We'll do that next time. Anything else about this game that we want to discuss? Because I feel like the bottom line here, and we've made it pretty clear, we've supported it with some pretty strong rose-tinted arguments, is that England are the better team, better individual performances, but for some unknown reason, some sort of hex, something just didn't click on the day.
I know what happened.
And England were robbed. That's basically what happened, right?
I know what happened. Harry Potter's real, Hogwarts is real, and Eddie James pissed off Dumbledore. And Dumbledore was like, England Lusio, which
nice.
For any young lads out there.
You give me something to use in the little show notes for the description of the episode.
Exactly. So, and any young lads out there, if you're trying to chat up women using Harry Potter lines, it's an absolute killer. So, good luck with that.
Yeah. But no, joking aside, I genuinely feel like England threw that game away. And I'm sure lots of people will, we've heard a few people saying Wales were awesome and they deserved the win. And we even said it at the end of the game. I don't believe that anymore.
They did deserve the win.
They deserved the win. They deserved the win because England didn't deserve it, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough.
I feel like England handed them the game. And if you're going to do that, then you deserve to lose. And, by default, therefore, the other team deserves to win. So that's my view anyway. And I'm sure it will be a positive one with our listeners, or our regular listeners, a less positive one with anyone listening in the hope of gloating.
But so right now, and I know the answer to this, before the Six Nations, we were saying we'd probably start Sam Underhill over Tom Curry. You can't.
You can't.
But,
but Sam Underhill would be a great guy to have on the bench, even though you're not necessarily planning on changing Tom Curry, because I think if necessary, you could just play both of them, depending on what the game required.
They're both just immense players. Suddenly, we had a problem at 7, and now suddenly we've got two
world class
sevens.
I mean, look, the bottom line is Sam Underhill's going to get injured because of the way he plays the game. So
Tom Curry, did you not see him? Oh my God, the guy won't live till he's 25 if he keeps playing like that.
More importantly, there are 2 of him.
There are 2 of him.
So I know that they play 6 and 7 at the moment, but I'm sure they're interchangeable. And how long before the England back row is Curry, Vunipola, Curry? I mean, and that's not taking anything away from Wilson, who's been awesome. But if Ben Curry is anywhere near as good as Tom Curry,
Ben Curry's brilliant. Ben Curry is brilliant.
Then you have to be going, why have we not even seen this yet?
Well, I do think that Ben Curry is brilliant, but Mark Wilson at the moment is brilliant +1.
Nice. But it was at the beginning of the Six Nations. In fact, before this game, we replaced Tom Curry when we did our combined team. We had Tipperick for Curry.
I actually thought Tipperick had a good game. Yeah, I thought he was massively outplayed by Curry.
Yeah, hugely. But again, like so many like for likes, if you were to go through that team, go past Liam Williams because Liam Williams wins, but George North lose.
Josh Adams had a great game.
Who?
Josh Adams, who scored their try, the other winger.
Yeah, I mean Johnny May. I guess you'd have to say it wasn't utilised enough to do it to really have the opportunity to shine, but didn't do anything wrong. And did well what he could in the limited amount of possession he had. Our midfield won certainly the statistical race, but again with what they had available to them, I thought our front 5 were awesome statistically. I mean, because they had more possession, we obviously made more tackles, but so I don't know how you really compare like for like. Our back row we've just discussed won. Curry won over Tipperick. Vunipola won over Moriarty, and I think Wilson won over Navidi. So, right across the board, I feel like individually the players won their individual battles. Tactically, we just got it totally wrong, and we handed them the game. Bottom line, that is the explanation, and that's why we're going to absolutely destroy Italy. We're going to destroy Scotland. And Wales are going to get a shock when they come up against Scotland in Edinburgh because they're a different. Well, actually, no. See, the problem is here.
Depends on who's.
Scotland have so many injuries.
Yeah, it depends who they've got back.
I put a tweet out, and Scotland have an injured team that's possibly stronger than their first team.
It's definitely stronger than their first team.
So hopefully the Edinburgh factor has an impact on the game. I think
some of them will be back.
I think Ireland, even though it's in Cardiff, I think Ireland might ruin Wales's party.
Ireland need a big performance, and
so yeah, I think we'll be celebrating winning the Six Nations come the end of come that final weekend.
I agree. And whilst we're on Six Nations, I just want to quickly move to the Red Roses Six Nations. So England, Italy, both teams are unbeaten in the women's side. So that'll be a good match and well worth watching on Sky Sports. And I'm a West Sussex boy myself. And there's a new West Sussex lady playing for England called Jess Breach, who was actually at Pulborough and Chichester Rugby Club, 2 places very near where I was at school. And
well, my old man played back in the day.
He did for Pulborough, didn't he? Yeah. So from... got the connection. She has scored 16 tries in 5 test matches.
Jeez.
So, Jess Breach, you're a legend. Carry on. And Red Roses, we are 100% behind you.
Has she scored a silly number in one? Or has she got a hat-trick in every game?
She got 6 in one match.
Wow.
But then that's still 10 in 4.
Yeah.
So, that's just brilliant.
Silly money. Nice. Well,
Yeah.
well done, Jess. Congratulations, and congratulations to the ladies. Let's keep that unbeaten streak going, and yeah, that will be another Six Nations title. I think the under-20s, under-21s, the under-20s, they lost to Wales as well, didn't they, in the final minutes? But I don't know. I think they were unbeaten to that point. So I guess they're in a similar boat to the men.
I haven't seen as much of the under-20s, I must admit, so I'm not entirely sure.
Come on, lads, let's get things back on track, right across, and ladies, right across the board, and let's take some Six Nations silverware home in a few weeks' time, and send a little message back out to the rugby world saying, something went wrong. Dumbledore stepped in. But he's since agreed to leave the Muggles to their Muggle sports, and
he's got other stuff to worry about.
Yeah, like Quidditch.
Exactly.
Okay, weird place to end the episode, but it's what happened, and I'm clearly not going to edit it out. So sorry, everyone. Anything else you want to add before we call time?
No, I don't think so. Just I am still massively positive about where England are leading up to the World Cup. England as a team, and I can't wait till we play Italy. And yeah, guys, well done, Wales. Good win for you. Unlucky England. It's a hiccup, but
by no
we
means
still
a
believe.
Disaster. Absolutely. Keep your heads held high. Keep marching forwards. That World Cup is still in sight. That Webb Ellis Trophy has still got our name on it, and before that, so is the Six Nations Trophy. So let's go and win that, please. We will be back next week to discuss the build-up to the Italy game, and obviously, if we've had any more comments from you guys, we'll obviously deal with those too. So get in touch at England Rugby Pod on Twitter and Facebook, or you can email us englandrugbypod@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts. Any questions you've got, etc. Head over to iTunes, drop us a review, give us a rating. That's how we get noticed. Obviously we're trying to get as many people joining us with their rose-tinted glasses before the World Cup. So come and join the party, spread the word. Thanks again for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next week.